This is from Multimodal Literacy Journal number 2. We're analyzing a paragraph in a physics textbook, a college one, and trying to relate it to notes that we can draw here in the future. So let's read the paragraph here. Some substances such as metals and salty water allow charges to move through them with relative ease. So what do we want to do is highlight what the paragraph is talking about. Usually in the first sentence of a paragraph like this in a science textbook, it's going to tell us about what the paragraph is going to be about. Here we know that this and this is going to allow charges to move through them with relative ease. So we want to, in our notes here, highlight and understand what the paragraph is going to about in a header, just like this one, charges, where we can write a little note for ourselves that throughout the notes that we have written down that positive and negative equates to charge. If we go back to the paragraph here, we have right here, such as metals and salty water. One of the things that we can write down here is that metals, charges move through positive and or negative. Again, we're going to use positive and negative to represent charge. Metals and salty H2O, or as we know, H2O is water. One of the easiest strategies that we can do here is simplifying words into symbols or abbreviations that we know personally and can relate back to you. Like in this one, we use H2Os to signify water, as well as highlight it in a different color to represent what it actually is in real life. We can go back to the paragraph again here and start with this sentence. These free electrons can move through the materials much as air moves through loose sand. Any substance that has free electrons and allows charge to move relatively freely through it is called a conductor. So we notice here in the scientific paragraph that free electrons as well as conductor is highlighted. Now this signifies in a science textbook that something about this sentence or this specific word or phrase is important. Here we notice that free electrons and conductor are bolded, like I said before. We can write those down, probably highlight them ourselves. Highlighting is a good way to signify importance into reviewing something back again later. Usually highlighting works great for definitions or like words for definitions, where again, another great strategy we can use here, instead of writing out the long definition of what a free electron is, we can instead simplify it and make it make sense to us. So instead of saying that big long thing, we can say move through materials, arrow representing the word through. Same with conductor, with, instead of writing with, W/, free electrons moving through. And then we have a few different categories here. Plus or minus, again, representing charge, easily underlined for significance of the word and its importance for the word conductor, as well as colliding with atoms or molecules, decreasing energy. Energy here, again, bolded or underlined, it could be, signifies the importance of this specific thing to the word we're talking about. Moving through the paragraph, we get down to right here, an ion is an atom or molecule having positive or negative non-zero total charge. Now, sometimes important concepts are not highlighted as easily in physics textbooks such as these, like free electrons or conductor, but we know that ion here is an important factor of this paragraph by dissecting what the sentence is saying. An ion is an atom or molecule having positive or negative non-zero total charge. That sounds like something that's pretty important to write down in our notes. So again, we can put that as a definition like we have done here, or just write it down as a note in general. But again, we want to simplify all of those words into something that makes sense to us. And then it's going to tell us a little bit about right here in this sentence. In other words, the total number of electrons is not equal to the total number of protons. Electron and proton is a scientific term. We don't need to get into what that is, but we can simplify that whole sentence into a symbol or phrase that makes sense to us. Again, like number here, symbol used instead of writing out the word number. E, negative, representing the word electrons, or P, representing the word protons, and the not equal sign to represent that these two are not equal to each other. Moving through the paragraph, we move on to a figure like this one, where we have three distinct things represented by A, B, and C. Underneath the figure, or sometimes above the figure, is going to be a little blip on what the figure is talking about, but we usually start with figure here, 18.11, to represent that this is what number the figure is and where it is in a textbook, because sometimes the textbook will like to reference back to the figure. If we look at A right here, we go through this whole paragraph and look for that little letter A over there. Here it is right here. It'll give us a little information on what is happening in letter A. We have a long sentence here, which again, we can translate to something such as simple as this. Again, highlighting here, gold, and for emphasis, as well as coloring it because we know that gold is this specific color, as well as relating it back to the leaves here. Great thing that we do in science, even though most people might not be good at drawing figures, is to draw it out themselves and write a little representation of what the figure is and what's happening here. Great thing that we can do when we draw a figure is to add more information, such as an arrow drawn from this specific location on the figure representing gold leaves, or we can highlight it too to add emphasis to what it is that we're looking at specifically here. But those are a few of the strategies that we look at when we are dissecting a difficult science paragraph such as this one. A lot of the strategies that we used here are simplifying those words like H2O, creating abbreviations or phrases like the one we did for protons and electrons, analogies that are relatable to you, such as water, or drawing colors to represent words, drawing references like the one that we drew up here, and highlighting those important vocab words or ideas, bolding them or underlining them for emphasis. So when we refer back to our notes, we can look at all of these different things, find them easily versus having to read a whole paragraph like this one over again and maybe not getting the full material out of this paragraph because there are too many words to dissect, when it might be much easier to have symbols or colors or highlighting or figures drawn to represent something that is relatable, as well as writing it down yourself helps with memory too.